Every single day, you are given the same 24 hours as the most successful people in the world. The same sunrise, the same opportunity, the same blank page to decide who you will become. Yet, what separates those who grow, achieve, and evolve from those who remain stuck in the same cycle year after year isn't luck, talent, or even intelligence. It's the habits they choose to improve daily. Growth isn't something that happens overnight. It's not a miracle moment or a breakthrough that changes everything. Growth is a slow, deliberate, and intentional process. It's built one habit at a time, one small decision at a time, one disciplined action at a time. You see, success doesn't come from doing extraordinary things once in a while. It comes from doing simple things with extraordinary consistency. The people who seem to move mountains are often the ones who never stop improving themselves. They take their habits seriously. They understand that if you want to live a better life tomorrow, you have to start becoming better today. Because your habits are the invisible architecture of your destiny. They shape your mindset, your performance, your relationships, and your sense of fulfillment. Every day, you're training yourself, whether you realize it or not. You're either reinforcing weakness or building strength. You're either feeding distraction or cultivating focus. You're either reacting to life or leading yourself through it. And that's why improving your daily habits isn't just about becoming more productive. It's about becoming more intentional. When you refine your habits, you refine your life. Think about it, every choice, every action, every response is a reflection of what you've trained yourself to do. The way you start your morning, the way you handle pressure, the way you speak to yourself when you fail, all of it comes down to habits. And if you want to live differently, you must start doing differently. But not randomly. Not when you feel like it. Consistently, purposefully, daily. The truth is, we all have habits, some that lift us and some that limit us. Some that serve our future and some that keep us chained to our past. The challenge isn't just to create new habits, but to improve the ones that already exist within us. Because improvement means awareness. It means refinement. It means progress, not perfection. The key lies in small, intentional shifts. Reflecting a little deeper, acting a little faster, staying a little more disciplined, learning a little more, and appreciating a little better. These aren't just actions, they're investments. Investments in your mindset, your character, and your future. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, one decision at a time. The best athletes, leaders, and thinkers didn't build their greatness in one day. They built it in the quiet moments when no one was watching, when they chose to improve a little every day, even when it felt insignificant, because they knew that true transformation is never sudden, it's gradual, it's earned. So as you listen to this, remember that change doesn't begin with a massive overhaul of your life. It begins with improving just one thing, one habit, one mindset every single day. Because when you commit to growth daily, you set in motion a chain reaction that touches every part of your life. In this speech, we'll explore 5 powerful daily habits, habits that, when practiced and improved consistently, will transform how you think, how you act, and ultimately, how you live. These aren't just routines, they're principles. They are the foundation for a life of purpose, clarity, and fulfillment. Because when you master your habits, you master your life. The habit of self-reflection is one of the most overlooked yet most transformative habits a person can ever develop. It's not something flashy. It's not something that gets instant applause or visible recognition. In fact, it often requires silence, solitude, and brutal honesty. But this single habit, when practiced daily, can change the entire trajectory of your life. Because self-reflection is not about looking at yourself through the eyes of judgment. It's about looking at yourself through the lens of growth. It's about asking, who was I today? What did I learn? What could I have done better? And more importantly, why did I react the way I did? Most people move through their days unconsciously, reacting instead of responding. They wake up, follow routines, go to work, come home, and repeat the same cycle. They never stop to analyze whether their actions align with their values. They never pause to see whether they are becoming the person they truly want to be. That's why self-reflection is not just a nice idea, it's a necessity. Because if you don't take the time to look within, the world will define who you are for you. And that's a dangerous place to live. Every day, life gives you feedback. The conversations you have, the emotions you feel, the challenges you face. They are all mirrors reflecting something about you. But without reflection, you miss the lesson. You miss the opportunity to grow. You repeat the same patterns, make the same mistakes, and wonder why life doesn't change. Self-reflection interrupts that cycle. It forces you to slow down and observe your thoughts, your choices, your emotions. It allows you to become aware of what drives you and what holds you back. Because awareness precedes change. You cannot fix what you don't see. The key is to make self-reflection a daily habit, not a rare occasion. You don't need hours for it. Even 10 minutes of honest reflection before bed can make a difference. Ask yourself what went well today, what didn't. What did I learn about myself? Did I act according to my values or my emotions? Was I patient, kind, disciplined? Was I proud of how I handled myself? These questions sound simple, but the answers can be life-changing because they shift your focus from external validation to internal alignment. When you build this habit, you begin to see yourself more clearly. You start noticing the small triggers that cause frustration or the habits that drain your energy. You begin to understand why you procrastinate, why you get angry, why you feel unfulfilled. And with that understanding, you gain power, the power to change. Self-reflection gives you control over your inner world. It helps you navigate life with more clarity and intention. Instead of being tossed around by circumstances, you start responding with awareness. You stop being reactive and start being proactive. But here's the truth: self-reflection requires courage. Because when you look within, you will see parts of yourself you may not like. You will face your insecurities, your fears, your excuses. And that's uncomfortable. That's why most people avoid it. It's easier to point fingers than to look in the mirror. But growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens when you confront the truth about yourself. When you acknowledge your flaws without running away from them. That's where transformation begins. Because you can't heal what you refuse to face. When you make reflection a habit, you stop living life on autopilot. You become intentional with your time, your energy, your focus. You start making better decisions because you understand your motives. You begin to lead yourself better because you know where you're going and why. Self-reflection builds emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and manage yourself before trying to influence others. It helps you communicate better, build stronger relationships, and respond with empathy instead of ego. Think of it this way: every day is like a page in your book of life. Reflection is the act of reading that page before turning to the next one. Without it, you lose the story's meaning. You repeat the same chapters without learning the lesson. But when you reflect, you gain wisdom. You extract meaning from your experiences. You start connecting the dots between your past behavior and your current results. You begin to see how your habits, your thoughts, and your mindset shape your reality. Over time, self-reflection becomes a compass. It guides you toward the person you're meant to become. It shows you where you're drifting and how to realign. It helps you measure progress not by how much you achieve, but by how much you evolve. Because true success isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more. And becoming more begins with knowing yourself deeply. So make it a ritual. At the end of each day, put your phone aside, sit in silence, and ask yourself, who was I today? Did I live according to my principles? Did I let emotions control me? Or did I stay grounded in my purpose? Did I add value to someone's life? Did I take one step closer to the person I want to be? These questions might seem simple, but they are the foundation of growth. They keep you humble, aware, and aligned. The more you reflect, the more intentional you become. You'll start catching yourself before repeating mistakes. You'll become more patient, more focused, more self-aware. You'll stop reacting to the noise of the world and start listening to the signal within yourself. Because in the end, reflection is not just about analyzing your day. It's about understanding your soul. It's about becoming conscious of who you are and who you're becoming. It's the silent conversation between your present and your potential. The habit of consistency is the foundation upon which every meaningful achievement is built. It's the bridge between intention and success, between dreams and reality. Everyone wants to achieve something great. Everyone wants to change their life. But very few are willing to show up every single day and do the work even when it's boring, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching. Consistency is not about intensity. It's about persistence. It's about showing up on the days when you don't feel like it. Because greatness is never created in moments of inspiration. It's built through the discipline of repetition. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They chase instant results, instant validation, instant growth. But the truth is, anything worth having takes time, and time rewards those who stay consistent. Consistency is not glamorous. It doesn't give you immediate feedback. It doesn't make headlines. It's quiet, steady, and often thankless. But it's the silent force that compounds over time. Every small, consistent action builds momentum. And momentum, once created, becomes unstoppable. Think about the difference between an average person and a successful one. Isn't intelligence or luck, it's consistency. The successful person simply decided to keep going long after others stopped. They showed up on the days when motivation was gone. They didn't let emotions dictate their actions. They trusted the process even when results weren't visible, because they understood something fundamental: progress is invisible before it becomes undeniable. Consistency is not about perfection. It's not about never missing a day or never failing. It's about returning to the path every time you fall off. It's about being committed, not just interested. The person who works out 3 times a week for a year will always surpass the person who trains intensely for a month and quits. The writer who writes 1 page a day will finish the book that the perfectionist never starts. The leader who shows up every day for their team will build trust that no motivational speech could ever replace. That's the power of consistency. It builds character credibility and confidence over time. The truth is, consistency tests your patience. It demands faith. Because for a long time, you might not see results. You'll work hard and feel like nothing is changing. That's where most people give up. They assume it's not working, when in reality, the process is working beneath the surface. Growth happens in silence. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean it isn't there. Like a seed beneath the soil, your consistent efforts are taking root. And when the time is right, the results will show. But only for those who stayed long enough to see it through. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen your self-belief. You begin to trust your own word. You stop relying on external motivation because you know you can depend on yourself. That's how self-confidence is built, not through achievements, but through keeping the commitments you make to yourself. When you consistently show up, you send a message to your brain that says, "I can rely on me." And that belief becomes your greatest advantage. The challenge is that consistency often feels mundane. It doesn't give the rush of excitement that comes with starting something new. But that's where discipline must take over. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. The emotional highs of motivation will fade, but discipline rooted in consistency will carry you forward. Every small, repetitive effort compounds into massive transformation over time. That's the power of compounding, not just in finance, but in personal growth, habits, and mastery. Look at anyone you admire in any field: athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, leaders. They all share one thing in common: consistency. They practiced their craft long before the world noticed. They repeated the fundamentals until excellence became their standard. They didn't chase perfection. They chased progress. They understood that mastery isn't achieved overnight. It's earned through thousands of hours of consistent effort. Every great musician played when no one was listening. Every great leader showed up before anyone believed in them. Every great achiever built their success in the quiet moments of consistency. Consistency is also about alignment. It's not just about doing something repeatedly, it's about doing the right thing repeatedly. You must ensure your actions align with your values and goals. Consistency without purpose is just repetition. Purpose gives consistency meaning. When you know your why, it becomes easier to stay consistent even when it's tough. Because you're not just doing it for the outcome, you're doing it because it aligns with who you are becoming. And the beauty of consistency is that it compounds not only results, but also resilience. The more consistent you are, the stronger your mind becomes. You learn to embrace discomfort. You learn patience. You learn persistence. You stop expecting life to be easy and start focusing on becoming stronger. Over time, consistency reshapes your identity. You stop identifying as someone who tries and start identifying as someone who does. You become dependable, focused, and intentional. There will be days when it feels like you're not moving forward. Days when progress feels invisible, when effort feels wasted. But remember, consistency isn't about speed, it's about direction. Every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to your vision. It's not about doing everything perfectly every day, it's about showing up with purpose, again and again. That's how habits are formed, skills are built, and dreams are realized. Because consistency isn't what you do occasionally, it's what you do relentlessly. The habit of discipline over motivation is what separates the ones who wish from the ones who win. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes like the weather. Some days, you wake up feeling inspired, ready to conquer the world. Other days, you can barely get out of bed. If your actions depend on how motivated you feel, you'll never achieve anything lasting. Because motivation is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable. Discipline, however, is a choice. It's the decision to act regardless of emotion. It's doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. That's what creates progress. That's what builds character. That's what turns average people into unstoppable ones. Most people wait to feel ready. They wait for inspiration, for the perfect moment, for the right mindset. But that's just another form of procrastination. The truth is, no one feels motivated all the time. Even the most successful people in the world don't wake up every morning feeling excited to work. They simply rely on discipline, not motivation. They've built habits that override emotions. When motivation fades, discipline takes the wheel because they understand that consistency without discipline is impossible. Discipline is about commitment. It's the quiet agreement you make with yourself to follow through no matter what. It's waking up early to work on your goals even when you'd rather sleep in. It's staying focused when distractions tempt you. It's saying no to short-term pleasure for long-term growth. Motivation will push you at the start. Because the truth is, the person you aspire to be is already within you. That version just needs to be nurtured through daily practice and persistent effort. Improving yourself daily isn't about chasing perfection. It's about progress. It's about showing up for yourself every single day, even when no one's watching. It's about recognizing that greatness isn't built on grand moments, but on quiet dedication. The people who change the world aren't necessarily the most talented. They're the ones who refuse to stop improving. So, as you move forward, remember this: every day is a chance to build the habits that will define your legacy. Every morning gives you a new opportunity to lead yourself with purpose, to grow with intention, and to live with gratitude. If you can master your habits, you can master your life. Because lasting success isn't found in what you achieve, it's found in who you become along the way. Do it. Because you know that if you rely on your feelings, you'll quit the moment things get hard. Discipline makes you act based on commitment, not comfort. It makes you immune to excuses. It doesn't matter whether you feel tired, unmotivated, or uninspired. You do it anyway. That's the mindset that builds success. The truth is, motivation is easy to find but hard to sustain. You can listen to a motivational speech, read an inspiring book, or watch a powerful video, and for a few moments, you'll feel unstoppable. But that feeling fades quickly. Discipline, on the other hand, grows stronger with time. Every time you follow through when you don't want to, you strengthen your willpower. You prove to yourself that you are capable of doing hard things. And that self-trust becomes your greatest asset. Because discipline is not punishment, it's freedom. It gives you control over your life. It frees you from the chaos of inconsistency and emotion-driven behavior. People often mistake motivation for the key to success. But motivation only starts the engine. Discipline keeps the car moving. Without discipline, you'll spend your life starting and stopping, always beginning but never finishing. The gym membership that fades after a month, the project you start and never complete, the habit you try to build but give up on. It all comes down to the lack of discipline. The problem isn't that you're not motivated enough, it's that you haven't trained your discipline enough. Motivation is about feeling inspired. Discipline is about becoming unstoppable. Discipline also gives you structure. It creates systems that help you stay consistent. You stop depending on willpower and start depending on habits. You schedule your priorities instead of prioritizing your schedule. You remove distractions, set boundaries, and focus on execution. You stop chasing motivation and start creating momentum. Over time, this structure becomes second nature. You no longer have to think about doing the right thing. You simply do it. That's when you know discipline has become part of who you are. And here's the irony. The more disciplined you become, the more motivated you feel. Because action fuels motivation. Once you start moving, even when you don't feel like it, you begin to build energy. Progress creates motivation, not the other way around. Waiting to feel motivated before acting is like waiting to feel strong before going to the gym. It doesn't work that way. You act first, then the feeling follows. That's the secret most people never learn. Discipline also demands self-respect. You can't build discipline if you keep breaking promises to yourself. Every time you say you'll do something and don't, you weaken your self-belief. But every time you follow through, you strengthen it. You build a sense of pride, not from results, but from effort. You begin to trust your word. That's why disciplined people have confidence that seems unshakable. It's built on evidence, not emotion. They've proven to themselves, again and again, that they can rely on their own actions. Discipline is uncomfortable. It requires sacrifice. It demands that you do things others aren't willing to do. But that's the price of growth. The truth is, you're going to experience pain either way, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. One lasts for a moment, the other can last a lifetime. Discipline might feel difficult now, but it builds a life of freedom later. Motivation feels easy now, but it builds a life of inconsistency later. The choice is yours. When you build the habit of discipline, you stop being controlled by moods and emotions. You no longer need to rely on outside inspiration to take action. You become the kind of person who does what needs to be done because it's the right thing to do. You stop waiting for permission to act. You stop making excuses for inaction. You stop quitting when progress slows. You simply keep moving one step at a time, one day at a time. That's how greatness is built, not through bursts of motivation, but through the quiet, daily act of disciplined persistence. The habit of intentional learning is the difference between living a life of growth and living a life of repetition. Most people stop learning after they finish school. They believe education ends when the diploma is in their hands. But that's where real learning truly begins. Life itself becomes the classroom, and every experience becomes a lesson. The ones who continue to learn intentionally every single day are the ones who keep evolving while others stay stuck. Because the world changes fast, and those who don't adapt, those who don't keep learning, fall behind. Intentional learning is not about collecting random bits of information. It's about seeking knowledge with purpose, applying it, and growing from it. To make learning intentional, you must be curious. Curiosity is the foundation of growth. It's the willingness to admit that you don't know everything. It's the hunger to explore, to ask questions, to dig deeper. The moment you think you know it all, you stop growing. The truly wise people are not the ones with all the answers. They're the ones who never stop asking questions. They know that every new piece of knowledge opens the door to even more learning. That's how you keep your mind alive. Intentional learning also requires humility. You have to be willing to be a beginner again and again. You have to be open to being wrong, to unlearning what no longer serves you. The world changes, and so must your understanding of it. What worked yesterday might not work today. That's why intentional learners constantly evolve. They don't cling to outdated ideas just because they're comfortable. They challenge themselves to grow beyond what they already know. And that humility, combined with curiosity, creates unstoppable growth. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming learning only happens through formal education. But intentional learning goes beyond classrooms. It's in the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the mentors you follow, the people you observe, the experiences you reflect on. Every day offers a lesson if you're willing to look for it. Intentional learners treat life as an ongoing education. They invest time daily in expanding their minds because they understand that mental growth is just as important as physical growth. There's a direct connection between learning and leadership. The best leaders are lifelong students. They read, they listen, they observe. They're open to new ideas because they know the more they learn, the better they can serve. Learning fuels perspective, and perspective fuels empathy. When you learn intentionally, you begin to understand people better. You see patterns. You develop emotional intelligence. You make wiser decisions because your knowledge is grounded in understanding, not assumption. But intentional learning isn't just about accumulating knowledge. It's about integration. It's about taking what you learn and applying it to your daily life. That's where transformation happens. Reading about leadership means nothing if you don't lead differently. Learning about communication means nothing if you still speak without listening. True learning shows up in your actions, not your words. It's visible in the way you treat people, the way you handle problems, the way you adapt when things don't go your way. To build this habit, you must create systems that make learning part of your lifestyle. Read a few pages of a good book every morning. Listen to something educational during your commute. Reflect at the end of the day on what you learned. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow. Ask questions, seek feedback, and stay open-minded. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to keep progressing. Because every day you learn something new, you move one step closer to becoming your best self. And the beauty of intentional learning is that it compounds over time. Just like small habits lead to big results, small lessons lead to great wisdom. The knowledge you gain today may not seem significant, but years from now, it will form the foundation of your success. Every idea, every insight, every new skill adds another layer to who you are. That's how mastery is built, not overnight, but through the steady accumulation of lessons learned and applied. Intentional learning also keeps you adaptable in a world that changes faster than ever. The ones who survive and thrive are not the strongest or the smartest, they're the most adaptable. And adaptability comes from continuous learning. When you make learning a habit, you stop fearing change. You start embracing it. You stop resisting challenges and start seeking them because you know every challenge expands your capacity. You stop being defined by what you know and start being driven by what you're still willing to learn. Because intentional learning isn't about filling your mind with information. It's about transforming your mind into a tool for growth. It's about evolving daily, thinking deeply and living consciously. It's about choosing to never settle for what you already know, but instead reaching for what you can still become. The habit of gratitude and perspective is one of the most powerful yet underrated habits a person can ever cultivate. In a world that constantly pushes you to want more, to achieve more, to compare more, gratitude becomes the anchor that keeps you grounded. It reminds you that success without appreciation is empty and growth without perspective is blind. Gratitude is not about ignoring your struggles or pretending everything is perfect. It's about learning to see the good that still exists in the middle of the chaos. It's about focusing on what you have instead of obsessing over what you lack. Because the truth is, the more grateful you are, the more peaceful you become. And the more peaceful you are, the more clearly you can see life for what it truly is. Perspective and gratitude are deeply connected. Perspective is the lens through which you view your life, and gratitude sharpens that lens. Without gratitude, your perspective becomes distorted. You start to believe that happiness lies somewhere in the future, after you achieve, after you get, after you become. But with gratitude, you realize that happiness is available right now, in this moment, with what you already have. Gratitude teaches you that fulfillment doesn't come from adding more to your life. It comes from appreciating what's already there. Most people spend their lives chasing something, a promotion, recognition, wealth, validation, believing that once they reach that point, they'll finally be content. But as soon as they get it, the satisfaction fades and they move the goalpost again. That's the trap of comparison and scarcity. Gratitude breaks that cycle. It shifts your focus from what's missing to what's present. It opens your eyes to the abundance that's been there all along. When you practice gratitude daily, you stop measuring your worth by outcomes and start valuing the process. You begin to see that even on your hardest days, there's still something to be thankful for. A lesson learned, a person who cares, a moment of peace. Perspective allows you to see beyond the moment. It reminds you that setbacks are not the end of your story, but part of your growth. When things don't go your way, perspective helps you ask, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of why is this happening to me? Gratitude turns pain into purpose by helping you extract meaning from struggle. It doesn't erase your challenges, but it gives them context. It helps you recognize that even in difficult times, life is still giving you something. A chance to grow stronger, wiser, more resilient. That's the power of perspective grounded in gratitude. When you make gratitude a daily habit, you start noticing things you used to overlook. The small wins, the moments of connection, the people who support you, the opportunities you once prayed for. You begin to realize how much you already have. Gratitude slows you down in a world that moves too fast. It helps you appreciate the present instead of constantly chasing the future. Because life is not happening somewhere out there, it's happening right here, right now. And when you live with gratitude, you start to experience life more deeply. You stop waiting for big events to feel joy and start finding joy in the small moments. The sunrise, the laughter of a friend, the quiet after a long day. Perspective also protects you from entitlement. It reminds you that not everything you have is guaranteed. The job you complain about is someone else's dream. The family you take for granted is someone else's prayer. The opportunities you overlook are the very things others are still hoping for. Gratitude keeps you humble. It reminds you that everything you have, your health, your freedom, your relationships, your opportunities, is a gift, not a guarantee. And when you recognize that, you begin to live with more purpose and appreciation. The habit of gratitude also reshapes your mindset. Instead of waking up thinking about what's wrong, you start your day thinking about what's right. Instead of ending the day focused on what you didn't accomplish, you end it reflecting on what you did. This shift changes everything because your mind is always looking for evidence to support what you focus on. If you focus on problems, you'll find more problems. But if you focus on gratitude, you'll start noticing blessings everywhere. Gratitude rewires your brain to look for good, even in bad situations. It builds resilience because it teaches you that no matter what happens, there's always something to hold on to. Perspective deepens this practice by reminding you that your life is bigger than a single moment or failure. It helps you zoom out and see the bigger picture. Sometimes, what feels like rejection today is actually redirection towards something better. Sometimes, the delay you're frustrated about is protecting you from something you're not ready for yet. Perspective gives you patience. It helps you trust the timing of your life. It shows you that even though you can't control everything, you can always control how you see it. When you live with gratitude and perspective, you stop seeing life as something happening to you and start seeing it as something happening for you. You begin to view every person and every experience as part of your evolution. The disappointments, the failures, the struggles, they no longer define you, they refine you. Gratitude turns bitterness into acceptance and fear into faith. It grounds you in the truth that life is not about having everything go your way. It's about finding meaning in everything that happens. Building this habit doesn't require grand gestures. It starts with simple awareness. Take a few minutes every day to reflect on what you're grateful for. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Feel it. And when challenges arise, remind yourself to zoom out to gain perspective. Ask, what might this be teaching me? How can this make me stronger? Over time, this daily practice shifts how you experience life. You stop reacting and start reflecting. You stop complaining and start appreciating. You stop rushing and start noticing. Gratitude and perspective together create balance. One grounds you in the present, the other guides you through the future. Gratitude reminds you that you already have enough. Perspective reminds you that you can always grow. Together, they give you peace in chaos, strength in struggle, and joy in simplicity. They help you navigate life with grace, humility, and a clear sense of what truly matters. At the end of the day, everything comes back to the small things you do consistently, the habits you choose, the discipline you practice, the mindset you nurture. Success isn't built in giant leaps. It's built in quiet moments of commitment. The greatest transformation happens not when life forces you to change, but when you decide to change yourself. When you wake up each morning with the intention to be a little better, to learn a little more, to reflect a little deeper, to act a little wiser. Because that's what growth truly is, a daily decision. The decision to not stay the same. The decision to not settle for average. The decision to invest in who you are becoming rather than who you've been. Every habit you improve, every choice you refine, shapes your future in ways you can't yet see. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. When you build the habit of self-reflection, you gain clarity. You start to see your patterns, your strengths, and your blind spots. You stop living on autopilot and start living with awareness. When you strengthen your consistency, you create reliability, not just in your work, but in your character. You prove to yourself that you can be counted on even when it's uncomfortable. When you prioritize discipline over motivation, you take control of your emotions instead of letting them control you. You learn that real power comes from doing what's right, not what's easy. When you cultivate the habit of intentional learning, you expand your world. You begin to see every day as an opportunity to grow, to adapt, to evolve. You realize that the smartest people aren't those who know the most, but those who never stop learning. And when you practice gratitude and perspective, you anchor yourself in humility. You stop comparing your journey to others and start appreciating the beauty of your own. Gratitude gives you peace, perspective gives you strength. Together, they make you unstoppable. These habits may seem simple, but they are profound. They are the difference between drifting and leading, between surviving and thriving. You don't need a new life, but only discipline will carry you across the finish line. The people who succeed are not the ones who feel inspired every day. They're the ones who keep showing up when no one else does. When you build discipline, you remove the need to negotiate with yourself. You stop giving your emotions the power to decide your actions. You no longer ask, "Do I feel like doing this?" You simply